All right, we are recording.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another tremendous webinar opportunity here, brought to you by the Rider School of Education and the Martinson Grant. This is a webinar titled Educational Technology Tools for Gifted and Talented Instruction, brought to you by myself, Brad Curry, and Dr. Alexandra Salas. Please use the hashtag RiderPLN on Twitter to share your favorite ed tech tools during this next hour and into the future. My name is Brad Curry. I am a Rider University class of 2001. Currently, I am the supervisor of instruction and assistant principal for the Chester School District in Chester, New Jersey. I am the founding partner of Evolving Educators, LLC, a Google trainer and author, ASC Emerging Leader, and Visionary Assistant Principal of the Year. And I'm very passionate about educational technology and social media and the role that both play in enhancing educator effectiveness and promoting the success of students.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alexandra Salas. I have been working as a consultant with Rider for several years now. I'm also the Dean at the Division of Innovation, Online Education, and Student Success at Mercer County Community College. My background is in education and as an instructional designer, and I too am very involved in keeping up with trends on instructional technology and how it can be used in a purposeful manner to engage our range of learners. So I'm very excited to be here with you today. Okay, so the objectives of this webinar are several. We will begin by introducing a couple of different tools, and in the registration email that you all received, there was a link to participate in Flipgrid, and if the internet bears with us today, we'll be able to demo it for you, and hopefully you'll be able to participate in the use of this tool, which is fantastic for sharing ideas, and you can respond by using text and also video. We will discuss project-based learning and assignments for gifted and talented classroom engagement, as well as identify a variety of educational technology tools that can be used within an instructional unit. In addition, we will focus on a bit on the importance of course alignment, how learning objectives and activities should be aligned and supported by the use of rubrics in order to really gauge how learners are retaining the content in a class. All right.
We're also going to identify, we're going to move on here to project-based learning.
Okay. All right. So project-based learning is really at the root of this presentation because it offers a platform for in-depth learning and inquiry. It's driven by reflection, critical thinking, and higher order learning skills. What it does is it prepares students for real life. It's discovery learning, it's active learning, and it's an engaging way for students and faculty to work together and also work independently to take responsibility for their own learning. It builds on collaboration and constructivism, and it's just a very engaging platform for embedding the use of technology tools, and it's a wonderful way to prepare classroom lessons for gifted and talented students that where differentiated instruction is critical. in terms of what the research says, it supports the use of project-based learning, which also folds into it problem-based learning. It impacts long-term retention of content. It improves performance on high-stakes testing, and overall, it's just a very engaging framework that instructors can use to challenge their learners and give them the independence that they need. It's beyond looking something up. Again, it's in-depth inquiry, and some of the elements that are part of project-based learning are the use of the alignment of student learning goals, also a project design. It has to be a real-life project so that they could really, project that has teeth, and then the project-based teaching practices. So not only do students learn and gain from this, but so do the instructors who have to prepare these lessons and think of creative ways to engage their students. Okay. Project-based learning as an assessment tool, again, is critical because it taps into those higher order learning skills, and it provides this value-added benefit of the student perspective, which is key. The instructor becomes not only the facilitator, but also the guide on the side. But then there's another layer, and it's integrating the findings of students when they're out there doing in their discovery mode. They're doing research, and they're examining, and they're doing analysis, and they're doing problem solving. And all this really adds important layers to their learning process. And so if Brett, if you can click on the video so we could take a look at how embedding an assessment through a project is very important.
Sure.
Different than a traditional classroom, PBL is going to integrate assessment throughout the project. Because these projects are multi-week projects, you need to keep on top of students and build in opportunities to assess where they are and what they're learning as you go along.
From the minute a teacher introduces that learning target for the lesson or engages in strategic observation, we feel that the assessment process is in play.
It's not a test at the end of the week or the end of a unit. You're doing a lot of small check-ins with the students to see where they're at and to see that they're growing along. So some examples of formative assessments that I use in my classroom is FIST 5. So 5 is I feel really good about this learning target. I'm learning what I need to in class today. A 0 is I have nothing.
You really have to know what kids know and don't know. That can often determine what next steps need to be put into place in order to support or differentiate the learning for the kids in their classroom.
You saw another form of assessment, which we call a quick check, or checking for understanding, and that's sort of the thumbs up, I get it, sideways, I'm not quite sure, or thumbs down, no, I don't get it. And that's for them to reflect, but it's also for us to do a check for their understanding.
It's just sharing some of the responsibilities for assessment with those who are most involved with the project. So you give students the opportunity to assess themselves. You give them the opportunity to assess their teammates.
We find that some of the important and useful feedback is when kids can offer it to each other.
So typically in a PBL unit, the culminating event is what all the students and the teacher are working toward. So usually this involves inviting community members, inviting other teachers, inviting parents to the classroom, or maybe you even do it in the evening and you present what the students have learned, whether it's the final product, something that they created, whether it's a solution to a problem facing the community. So it's usually a big deal, and the teachers should take advantage of that being a big deal, because the students are very proud to present what they've learned. It really becomes an event where students are showcasing all that they've learned through this big project and their plans for how they're going to pursue it further.
So if we could go back to the presentation just to recap. One of the critical components of project-based learning is that it does provide a platform for realistic problems and projects. It's structured, and it also provides multiple opportunities to receive feedback and for students to give feedback as well. It promotes group work, but it also promotes individual accountability, and many different things can be tested or assessed. You know, there are multiple learning outcomes. It provides an opportunity for expert voices and the student voice, which Brad will touch on a bit later in our presentation. And finally, it fosters collaboration and reflection, which are key to this type of, you know, it's the gold standard of project-based learning. Because it enables students to work on something and attempt to answer complex questions. And they do get to the heart of a project, you know, so it's active, in depth. You know, I keep saying that because it's so important, you know, how we learn and we reflect on experiences when we're really involved in the research ourselves and in our own learning process. You know, the students take ownership over what they're looking at and what they're learning. So they're not passive in terms of the information that they're tapping into. Okay, we could go on to the next slide. In the same vein, the use of rubrics, you know, feedback is very important, but how students will be assessed, you know, and in designing a project, it's key to understand and to conceptualize what are the different elements that are going to be reviewed. And the various links that we have posted here allow you to create a rubric from scratch. You can customize your rubric. And Orange Slice, for example, is a Chrome add-on that you can utilize to create a rubric. And Brad, would you mind demoing the use of Orange Slice?
Sure, not a problem. So Orange Slice, as Alex just alluded to, is a Google Docs add-on. All right, so if you are a Google Apps for Education district, or what they call now a G Suite for Education district, you can utilize this add-on. Even if you're not in the district, you can utilize the add-on, but it wouldn't make sense to if you're not in a G Suite, because most kids need access to Google Docs, and the workflow would just not be the same. So it's important that you are in a Google district. I'm just going to demo Orange Slice quickly here on this document that I'm going to talk about later that looks at our gifted and talented curriculum here at Black River Middle School. So, you know, pretend this document is an essay that either the students completed or are going to complete on Google Docs, and you need to grade it with a rubric. All right, and you want to be able to grade it with a rubric, have that rubric embedded into Google Docs, and then be able to share that feedback with the students online through Google Docs or Google Classroom. So if you're in Google Docs, you go to the Add-ons tab here, and if you've downloaded the Orange Slice rubric, you will see it here as an option. All right, and if you did not, then you would have to get the add-on. And so what you would do is click on Get Add-ons, and in the search box here, you would type in Orange Slice. All right, and then you'll notice that there are two options. The option for the teachers is obviously the teacher rubric. You would click this. Here, mine is green, and it says Manage because I've already added it to the add-ons area here in Google Docs. Yours would probably say plus, and it's free, and so you would click on that, and then you would add it. Okay, so then once you add it to your add-ons area here, it'll show up. And then what you would do is you would enable it. And so you would go to Orange Slice Teacher Rubric, click on Score Rubric, And on the right-hand side here, you will notice an area where you can build your rubric. And so, again, due to time constraints here, I'm not going to sit here and build a rubric. I'm just going to click off on some items here. You can actually create your own if you want, but for the time being, I'm just going to select some options that they have here. All right, this is a category for language arts, some sort of language arts rubric. I'm going to check all these off. Once the rubric's created, though, you can see here it's starting already. You can edit as you need to. Okay, and I'm going to click Create Rubric. And it's creating the rubric. And you will notice here in a moment it'll show up within the Google Doc. Okay, and then you can actually set up how many points you want it to be set up for, category weights, those sorts of things, how you want to disseminate the rubric, those sorts of things. You can click inside and you can delete parts of the rubric and do what you need to do. And as you go through the rubric and go through the document, reading it, you can, the grade will show up and then you can share it out to that student. So that's just one way to create a rubric digitally and help students understand what their grades are and things, and have students create their own rubrics to help them guide their learning, which is an important part of teacher evaluation and ultimately promoting the success of students. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these rubrics. And we are going to move back to the presentation here, and we'll send it over to Alex.
Okay. The image that you see there is an example of a project-based learning rubric if you guys could see it really clearly, you see the level of detail. And what's important about designing something like this is that it's transparent to the student and to the instructor how that particular assessment is being evaluated. Another resource that you could use is Rubistar, and Brad, if you could click on that link, it'll take us to, it should take us to the Rubistar website, and you have a variety of rubrics from which to choose that you could customize for your use, for your various projects. So I know that we're having a slight internet connection issue, so if we can't get to it right away, that's okay. We will be sharing the presentation with you later on, and you could take a look at it yourself. But basically, the point we'd like to hone into is the value of using rubrics and why they are important. The design of the project is central to student learning, but informing them and in the design process, determining what the outcomes are and how you'd like to assess those outcomes to determine if students are really retaining the content so that they could be successful. And as the video had indicated, it's not about the test. It's about what it is that you're evaluating, their level of understanding. So the various layers in learning and how it applies to not just to the pedagogy and what's happening in the classroom, but to real life. You know, what knowledge can that student take with him or her moving forward? So that's the value of ensuring that you have a rubric so that the student understands how they're, not only how they're being evaluated, but how their work can also be assessed in terms of consistency and experimentation, collaboration, coordination, and whatever other criteria may be important. And the sophistication of the project as well. You know, what competencies are being looked at. And in terms of the inquiry, like how much detail did the student go into, or was it just a superficial inquiry or research? So all these are very important questions, and it should guide the design and also the assessment of the project. Okay, we can move on to the next slide.
So there are some examples here that I want to share with you that I'm familiar with here at Black River Middle School, and many of these projects can be expanded to the elementary and high school levels as well. But some of the things we do with our STEM class, we have a STEM class here. It's a cycled course, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And the students have the class for one marking period. And they're able to, in 6th grade, work on projects related to wind power and solar power. In 7th and 8th grade, they understand how catapults work. They build their own catapults and test them out. They get into earthquakes and geology and build their own earthquake towers. And then in 8th grade, they build their own CO2 dragsters and also robots. They actually program their own robots to go across a map that they also build that kind of ties into the expansion of the United States over time, and the robots will move the materials from one side of the map to the other, and to kind of show different things over the history of the United States. I've provided a Google short link here to the actual curriculum, but what happens here within these project-based learning experiences is that students will gain a solid foundation, say for solar power, going through different things with the teacher, with the class, learning about solar power and the sun and that sort of thing. And then what happens is that they will be granted the opportunity to kind of create their own solar-powered object. We have students that will build these objects in class and then go outside. You'll see them outside all the time on a sunny day, testing out these objects, whether they're solar-powered Ferris wheels, solar-powered cars, solar-powered elevators, all kinds of things. And then so it's pretty neat to see students, when you go down to the classroom there, they're on the floor, they're building, they're collaborating, they're designing, they're creating, and it's just something pretty special. And the same can be said for our Gifted and Talented program, where students through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are able to, they're able to get into topics in more detail. And one of the favorite projects that students are involved in is a mentor project. Well, they will identify a problem and they will create a solution, and they'll use they'll create some sort of product, and they'll use insight from surveys. They'll survey the elementary students down in elementary schools to kind of guide their thought process with the products they design for a specific problem. And so it's really neat to see. And there is a link here that I want to share with you that I'll have to insert into this presentation that'll kind of give you an idea of what our curriculum was all about. But it's definitely hands-on, definitely project-based, and includes many sorts of technologies. And so between our STEM projects and our Gifted and Talented projects, many of our students, all of our students in STEM, many of our students in Gifted and Talented, are offered vast experiences, hands-on, collaborative, project-based learning experiences that really get them thinking and collaborating.
Okay, so there's a plethora of information out there about project-based learning, so we thought we'd give you at least two two resources where you could find plenty of information. It'll keep you busy for quite some time. And the Buck Institute for Education is one. And what's fascinating about this particular site is that, if you can click on it, Brad, they curate information from a variety of resources. So these are examples of various project-based learning projects across many different subjects. So from High Tech High, you have 75. If you go to the drop down, you could see all the subjects that are covered and how they link to the Common Core standards, if that's something that you're looking at. But you have science, you have math, social studies, world languages, the arts, and these it fleshes out the actual project and what was the thinking behind it and how it's applied in the various age groups, or academic levels. The other site, normally we talk a lot about Twitter, but this time we're going to share with you how Pinterest is being used for sharing and disseminating project-based learning ideas. So it's not just for recipes anymore. And again, you'll find lots of examples, how project-based learning is used in the classroom, how it's used for teaching, and there are links, free downloads, articles, multimedia resources, and and some lessons there for you to peruse that you could also repurpose, for your own classes if you're interested in doing so. Okay.
And you notice there on the Pinterest page that part of the page was there and part of the page was not. If you're not aware, Amazon's having an internet issue, and Amazon hosts many of the servers around the world, and some of those servers host like Pinterest and Flipgrid and some other programs out there, and so part of the internet's down today, and due in part to Amazon's issues. So hopefully the Flipgrid will work later on as we get into it, but I want to introduce a tool that can be used in your STEM classes, in your gifted and talented classes, in any class for that matter, to support, to enhance project-based learning, to enhance student voice and collaboration, and Flipgrid is one of those tools. And so right now I'm going to show a video about how Flipgrid works for students of all ages. And it kind of started, the use of Flipgrid started in the higher ed spaces and kind of has trickled its way down to high school, middle school, and elementary school. So here it is.
It is amazing to watch what kids will say to a computer screen that they won't say to a teacher. There's a level of honesty that comes out from kids. You see more of their natural side, or sometimes more of their personality comes out when they're making a video. It's very personal. A lot of kids who are timid to speak directly to a person will share all kinds of things on a Flipgrid. So to me, it's a tool that very easily lets kids have a voice and be heard with very little work on the side of the teacher other than asking the question and giving the space for that question to be answered.
One of the things that I think librarians have been in the vanguard about is using technology in authentic ways, not just for consuming, but for creating. The authenticity of video and voice really helps build community and relationships. And relationships are what it's all about. Learning happens best when there are relationships between the faculty member, the instructor, and the students, and among the students. It was Maslow that said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We've got a more powerful toolkit than ever before, and we can use it to create and make a difference in our world. So I want my students to go out there and model that in the K-12 environment, and I want their students to be able to create and participate in powerful ways.
I was looking for an application where I could use technology inside the classroom as well as outside of the classroom for students to speak their math thinking and then hopefully have other students follow their same process. So most recently in my classroom, I took the math practices and focused on perseverance and understanding problems. Each group then was responsible to record a response that was moderated by myself, so they didn't have the opportunity to see any other student responses on Flipgrid until I unlocked those videos. And students now have gone back into the Flipgrid app and are watching videos and filling out a feedback form. The application and the use of technology has allowed for me to break down the four walls in my classroom instead of being able to critique just the students in that particular class in those 45 minutes. I'm having students critique across the 95 students on my team. It allows the students to see that sometimes those regular lower level students, in terms of what their ability appears to be, they're actually communicating their process much better than the kids who get the math very quickly.
When we first created Flipgrid, we focused primarily on the interaction between teachers and students to amplify student voice. What we found is that teachers use the environment to share their best practices and stories with other teachers around the world.
It's been a tool that really helps students get their voice to the forefront, and it has really been something that's been a catalyst for bringing dialogue back into the classroom.
We're in the selfie generation. These kids don't mind looking at a camera and practicing their English over and over and over again. They actually have fun. I've had students who are really shy in the classroom. They really liven up in front of the camera.
We love Flipgrid, and the reason why is because it allows our students to express themselves in their native language, American Sign Language, and communicate with each other instead of having to type everything in English, which is their second language.
And so Flipgrid is a tool that we are starting to use here at Black River Middle School, and it's something that definitely gives students a voice, particularly those students who are reluctant to raise their hand in class. They are able to go onto Flipgrid, to open up the app on their mobile device or whatever device they're on at the time, at home or in school, and speak clearly and fluently and get their ideas across. Typically, you know, a teacher will post a video with a question or a prompt, and then the students will hop into what they call a grid and post their own video response related to whatever the teacher posted. And so it's just a different way to engage students in a meaningful way using technology. There are private features, and it's set up in a way that you can definitely keep the classroom private, and it's just amazing. And to see some kids really struggled over the years with speaking in front of people, to hear their voice was incredible, and was definitely put a tear in your eye, just based on the fact that for years you were trying to help a couple of these students really try to be comfortable in front of others, and they weren't able to. But you put a camera in front of their face, they're able to do it with no problem, and definitely helps boost their confidence. And over time, they'll be able to get up in front of their classmates and present and do whatever they need to do. So what we've done here, Alex and I, is we've created a Flipgrid for this particular class. And so what we ask you to do over the next few days is to kind of respond to my prompt here, and you'll be able to log into Flipgrid for free and create a response and share your thoughts on what your favorite ed tech tools are. and we'll kind of expand on this a little bit later in terms of what we need to do for the next webinar as well. So definitely Flipgrid is a tool to take a risk and try out in your class.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if you go to flipgrid.com /voice, you'll see the Flipgrid global community, which is what we're doing on a smaller scale as it relates to this webinar, where we can have an exchange where we can share some tool recommendations that you may be interested in, but we also want to hear from you as it pertains to gifted and talented and also STEM. And in the global Flipgrid community, there's a very interesting post on the power of student voice and its transformative use in the classroom, which is, again, it just builds on some of the comments that we've made throughout the presentation on how project-based learning adds it empowers the learner and it empowers the learning process by engaging students in a different manner where they can be responsible for their own learning and their own discovery. And this tool that we would like to share with you, especially, take your time in the next couple of days, think about what you've used or maybe what you'd like to use, and then we can read and we can listen to your responses and make recommendations on March 7th and have an exchange. We'd like to make this session interactive so that we can have a discussion, and you can also turn on your webcams and we can turn on ours, and we can talk about different tools that may apply to how you want to teach in the class. Okay.
Student voice is really important as you look to enhance your STEM classes or your gifted and talented classes or your regular education classes. One way to do that is through blogging. I encourage my own staff here, my colleagues here, and I encourage educators around the world to give blogging a chance. I don't care if kids are in 3rd grade, 8th grade, or 12th grade. It's important for them to show what they know, to gain insight, to share their perspective on different topics, not only with their peers within their own class, within their own school, but with other students from around the world. And Sylvia Duckworth recently wrote a blog post titled 10 Reasons for Students to Blog. And you can use a site like KidBlog, or if you're a G Suite for Education District, you can use Blogger. You can use Tumblr. You can use a whole bunch of different sites, WordPress, Weebly, and have kids blog. Start off with a sort of like paper blog experience or learning activity where students write on a piece of paper, okay, and then they place their paper blog on a desk, and then students will walk around, kind of do like a gallery walk, and with sticky notes in their hands, and they will post comments on the paper blogs on these sticky notes. And that's kind of like what we're doing with blogging. You have a blog, and then people are able to comment on your blogs. And again, it really promotes idea sharing, and it promotes perspective on different topics from a global perspective. And it's just something that would definitely enhance your STEM class or your gifted and talented class, and really give students an opportunity to express themselves in a different way. Just like on Flipgrid, blogging kind of does the same thing. Instead of just, all right, I'm going to write an essay for my teacher, and maybe my mom or dad will read it as well, but it's basically for my teacher, maybe for myself, and that's it. It's graded and handed back. Now blogging, you're kind of opening up your ideas to others, which is pretty cool. And Something that is useful here as well. This is an image by Sylvia Duckworth, 15 things every teacher should try this year. All right, and this kind of goes into our, sharing of ed tech tools and what we're going to be doing with Flipgrid here in our next webinar. We want to hear what you're doing as well in your classes. Because again, the more educators share, the more likely that students, their success will be impacted in positive ways. So we need to share the great things we're doing every day in class. But these are just some of the different things you can do, that teachers can do, or that students can do to enhance their learning experiences. And you can see here blogging, you can see coding, creating those digital portfolios, conducting mystery Skypes. You talk about enhancing a project-based experience. How cool would it be to bring in a scientist or a community member who has firsthand knowledge of that particular topic, and to bring them in on Skype or a Google Hangout, and have kids interact with them virtually, would be pretty neat. Here's the SAMR model that kind of looks at how you can integrate technology, how students can use technology to make sense of their learning experiences. It starts out with substitution, where maybe you're using Google Docs to type or write instead of pen and paper, and it takes you all the way to redefinition, where technology allows for the creation of new tasks previously inconceivable. So maybe students are creating their own websites. Maybe students are creating their own virtual maps or their own YouTube channel, their own content to kind of show what they know. Things, again, that we weren't able to do years ago, now because of technology we are able to do. So you want to really use the SAMR model to kind of guide your technology integration, not only in your gifted and talented in STEM classes, but any course that you teach. Some research and best practices that you want to be aware of. I'm a big fan of John Hattie and Visible Learning, and he talks about collective teacher efficacy, having a 1.57 effect size. Anything over 0.40 has a pretty good impact on student learning, which is what we're all here to do. We're here to enhance student learning, impact student learning. Collective teacher efficacy, all right? Teachers coming together either in the physical or virtual world and sharing their ideas, sharing best practices, looking at the data, and kind of driving instruction and driving student learning experiences in a positive way. So John Hattie says that's one of the top effect sizes on student learning is when teachers come together. Right now, we're going to be coming together here not only through this webinar but through Flipgrid and sharing. We see people do this in their personal learning networks, whether it's on Twitter or Pinterest or Facebook or Voxer. We see educators do this in their PLCs in their schools, where maybe you have world language teachers coming together and sharing their ideas, sharing their data with their colleagues. And again, it's all about sharing and kind of taking things and making them your own and going back to your schools, your classrooms, your districts, and helping kids out. Classroom discussion has a 0.82 effect size. And you need to look at classroom discussion differently, because many of our schools that we work in are one-to-one or BYOD or have access to devices in some way, shape, or form, and we are able to use tools like Flipgrid or Voxer or many of the other tools that are out there to hold discussions in different ways. All right, so no longer are we thinking of a discussion where we are with the kids in a classroom and holding a discussion. That can look differently now because of technology, so we need to think that way. and it really helps if we guide classroom discussions in an effective way that really impact kids and help them learn the content at hand. Feedback has a 0.73 effect size. I mean, he lists, many different effect sizes, some that work and some that don't work. I kind of took the ones that did work and made it applicable to technology. Feedback, looking at Google Docs, all right? We've all used a Google Doc, but one of the less used features is the comment feature on Google Docs. We need to start using the comment feature to provide real-time feedback to students so that they can improve their product right then and there, rather than, all right, I'm going to hand out an assignment and then 6 weeks from now I'm going to hand it back to them. Then no, students need to know how they're doing on a consistent basis, and technology allows us to do that. Formative evaluation has a 0.68 effect size. Some tools like Play Pose It. Play Pose It allows you to embed questions within videos that either you made or that you find maybe on YouTube or Vimeo, and you can embed questions within the video clips to check for understanding, which is a powerful, powerful tool to guide future instruction, or maybe to flip instruction in many ways. Recap, check out Recap. It's a tool similar to Flipgrid, where you post prompts or questions, students respond via video, and you can kind of hone in on certain skills and questions and ideas, and use that data to impact instructions. Check out Recap. And then Google Forms is definitely a great way to evaluate students either before, during, or after class, either as an exit ticket or a do now, or maybe in class or at home. You want to get a quick idea of how students are progressing as they learn about a certain topic. Utilizing a tool like Google Forms can really help you out. Now they have a quiz feature, Google Forms, that kind of connects with your grade book and things, and can make grading easier as well. And then definitely check out the National Education Technology Plan. I know we've talked about this before in previous webinars, but it's been recently updated. It came out last year and really has guided our way of thinking as it relates to technology integration and what it looks like, not only from the infrastructure standpoint, but from a teaching and leading and learning standpoint. And we always need to think about universal design for learning, and making sure that when we integrate technology, that every single child can use it in some way, shape, or form. It's really important that we have that as a top priority. We need to make sure that that assessment is embedded and real time, and no matter how we're doing things. And there's a shift from the passive use to ed tech to really engage, going from on task to engaging students in meaningful learning experiences with technology. We're just not using technology to create glorified worksheets, or just showing videos or things like that. We need to make sure that it's relevant. Evidence to inform instruction. The National Education Technology Plan talks to this. We need to use technology in a way that will provide evidence that, hey, this technology, this device, this website, this app is really useful, and here's why. And we need support and time. We need to support our teachers. One thing we've done here in the Chester School District is we provided technology coaches to work alongside our teachers and students as they integrate new devices and new websites and apps in their various learning experiences, and provide time for educators to really explore the different tools that they're using. So for example, all right, I want to learn about Flipgrid, giving them time during the school day to explore these things in creative ways, providing time for teachers. You can access the National Education Technology Plan at this website, or just Google the National Education Technology Plan. Alex?
Yep. So in that vein, we'd like to recap and go back to the importance of aligning the tool with the learning objectives, because it helps with the project design. So according to the National Association for Gifted Children, project-based learning is a model that asks students to solve real-world problems, open-ended questions, by having them do the research, asking questions, deliberating, and really tapping into some critical thinking and the use of 21st century skills, which involves the technology. So if we're trying to empower students with the use of technology, and we're trying to empower ourselves as educators with technology, using the right tool, or the right tool that we consider for the task, is critical. So curating the information, curating and designing the project is important, in as much as aligning the tool and the learning objective so that we're creating meaningful learning experiences for the students. So it's not about rote learning. It's there's retention there of the content retention. And a book that we'd like to recommend for you to look at is Project-Based Learning for Gifted Students, A Handbook for the 21st Century Classroom by Todd Stanley. And it also reinforces linking projects with standards and finding the right structure and creating a practical classroom environment. So when we share the presentation with you, the link to the text will be there, so if you want more information about the book. So again, the title of the book is Project-Based Learning for Gifted Students, A Handbook for the 21st Century Classroom, and the author is Todd Stanley. All right, so some takeaways. As Brad mentioned, we may not be able to use Flipgrid right now because of the server issue with Amazon, but the link is there, and we look forward to you posting and answering and contributing to the discussion. Todd and I will also be active in that forum. And Todd, you want to talk about our hashtag?
Yes, I'll take a look here at this hashtag here for a moment, the Rider PLN hashtag. It's something that we've started a few weeks ago and are slowly rolling out, and it's a great way for people to share their insight on Twitter about EdTech tools. So use the hashtag RiderPLN to share out your favorite EdTech tools.
Right, and Brad and I created an online learning community that you'll be able to find at that link, the Google /4IT8MU, and what they'll take you to is a form that you can put in your contact information and share information about tools and what sites you use, and feel free to add columns if there's something that you are using that we have an outline there. So if you blog, you can provide the name of the link to your blog. If you're on LinkedIn, you can share that with us. If you're part of any Google community, you can also let us know what that is. Any Facebook groups. It's very nice to be able to continue to add to our networks. And so this is one way that we can collect the information and share it with everyone who participates. And lastly, the second part to our webinar is next Tuesday, March the 7th. Is that a Tuesday? I thought it was a Thursday. If you've already registered, then you can just use the same link, and we can meet here, same time, same place. We'll continue to share this out. The link will be live and share it with friends. If there's anyone who was not able to attend that you know of, please encourage them to register. And we look forward to continuing our conversation with you next week. And so if you have any questions, we'd like to open it up and listen to any inquiries that you might have. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording, and if you have any questions, I'm going to unmute all of us so that we can chat. Thank you all for attending.